the FF Dynasty presents Married to the Game for your pleasure.
Well, I don't know if it's a good way to start the show or a bad way to start the show, but we are going to start the show with a Cleveland Brown. How do you feel about that?
Did you say shart the show?
He said he sharded.
With the Cleveland Browns.
I sharded.
I'm really ready for them to be better. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but they do have some players on their team that have some fantasy relevance. So let's see if we're in, right? We got some Corey Colemans.
We got some Corey Coleman, and
73 on the current ADP.
there's some talks of a possible Pryor return. There's been rumblings of a Coleman trade, which would be okay with me. If you wanted to get rid of Coleman, that's fine. As Jay Wayne mentioned, he's at ADP of 73 for February here. What do you guys make on? I'm personally not really down on him too much. He's obviously been a little banged up through the first couple of years. When he's had his chances, it's been pretty decent. Obviously, Josh Gordon came back at the end of last year, like we talked about last week. They kind of force-fed him some balls. It would kind of hurt old Corey Coleman last year at the end of the season when he did come back.
So 3 straight games with 1 catch to end the year, 15, 16, 17.
Right, and not the best quarterback play and not the best situation. So,
But
how do you
still
guys
a
feel?
solid ADP here.
Right.
So it's crazy because he
But
really
it's-
hasn't
It's
done.
not solid if you bought him last year.
Right, it's slowly been deteriorating
I
here.
think it made its way up to 24 at one point. I was looking at the history on the
Yeah.
DLFs, and it made it to 24 at some point. I don't know
It's
exactly
hanging
when
on.
that was, but
It's hanging on.
still hanging on. But he hasn't really done much. I mean, there's 56 catches over the past 2 years. He's missed 13 games in the last 2 seasons. Broke his hand, required surgery in 16. Broke the same hand, I believe, in 17 that required surgery. Sports Injury Predictor said that it was the same hand, but I've gotten burned by them before on this podcast because they had the wrong data. So I don't know, but he did break his hand twice, 2 different years. But he missed the first 7 games of last season and then comes out versus Jacksonville, one of the best pass defenses in the league.
Well, he
Puts
played
up
week 1 and 2.
Well, sure, but then he missed 7 games, right? Comes back, first game versus Jacksonville, puts up 6 for 80. Now, this was before Josh Gordon, but that's a solid score to come back after breaking your hand against one of the best pass defenses in the league playing for the Browns.
Yeah, I had
Agreed.
picked him up and stashed him a few weeks before that in a redraft league and was scared to death to play him in the Jacksonville game and then fired him up the next game and wasn't a terrible day, but it wasn't what I was expecting after a nice day against the Jaguars. And then, Jesus, the game after that.
Yeah.
Goose egg.
He's only had 1 game over 100 yards his whole career, which is kind of like there's a lot of reasons to be down on this guy, but for some reason I'm still interested. I'm still down to put him on my team.
The physical traits are great, and that's what's keeping him at the 74. Obviously, he's a vertical threat. He's a burner. If you can put a decent quarterback and another good receiver on the other side of him, you would have to think that Corey Coleman can eat and do his thing.
Yeah, he hasn't Kevin Whited or Brashad Perriman.
Mm-hmm.
He's still hanging on. And coming out, he was my favorite wide receiver. I'm not,
In that particular draft
in
class.
that draft class, he was. I really, really liked him a ton. Not gonna pretend like I didn't. And it's just one of those things. Like you get hurt. Is he got the Keenan Allen syndrome? Is he going to come back? Not that he's a PPR monster like Keenan Allen, but he's a big play guy. The 6 for 80, the 5 for 53 for a touch just this year with Deshaun Kaiser throwing him the ball, the rookie. And then the year before, before he gets hurt or in between, he comes back, scores some decent points, and gets
had
hurt
like one
again.
good game his rookie
Right.
year that
The
sustained his value throughout the
2
offseason.
touchdowns, but he flashed like that 2 touchdown big play. But what you thought he could do coming out, he showed it to you. But it's just such a small sample size at this point because he's hardly on the field. It's just one of those things where how much more of this can you take?
Sure. I will say this. I mean, it's at 73, but like you just mentioned, he was your favorite receiver in that draft class. I mean, Sterling Shepard has come out and had 2 nice years by all accounts and is 12 picks ahead of him, 13 picks ahead of him.
Good point.
So this ADP is staying pretty strong. I'm not saying that that's really worth too much, but I mean, his value is staying, right up there with Sterling Shepard, who's actually been on the field and proving himself and, seems to, you know what I'm saying here?
Yeah, especially this time. This is February ADP because it's March 3rd. March isn't out yet. And you just mentioned a guy a couple of picks ahead of him that was in the same draft class. And in front of that, draft class was Devontae Parker, who has done nothing but let his people down year after year after year, but he's at 74 right behind Corey Coleman. It's potential season. In February, your ADP, it's all potential. And that's what happens. And Corey Coleman is filled with potential. Still is. We haven't seen him go out there and not be good. He's good when he's out there. He's just not out there much. So the potential word capital P, he's still got a ton of potential. But obviously he's a Cleveland Brown, so when he's been out there, it's been hard to get a decent target thrown his way. And the biggest thing we just mentioned briefly and then got past it because we were trying to get going on him and get revved up here. Josh Gordon comes back, just demanding targets. And then if Pryor goes over there, we kind of mentioned it last week when we talked about Pryor, the three of them on one team in Cleveland, that's disaster.
It can't be great. Maybe they do get one of these free agent quarterbacks who can help them out because Hugh was saying how he didn't want to start a rookie, and then you bring Todd Haley in, who is a pretty decent and well-respected offensive mind, and I'm kind of interested to see what he can do with this team. If they can get a quarterback, they could have a good offense. But I could see what you're saying. It could be, a little, as you like to say, a little muddy over there with those three guys, and it's the Browns. And to hope that all that turns around that quickly is probably a little bit of a.
Well, he's 20. He's 23. Calvin Ridley's about to be drafted. He's 23.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So if Pryor goes over there and
about to turn 24.
Okay. Well, yeah, exactly. I'm not looking at birthday here, but
23.7 is where he's at.
Close enough. Well, so you get what I'm saying. He's super young, super potential. It's just.
So you guys in or out at 73? We'll start with Jay Wayne over there.
I think I don't know that you're going to see the dividends right away, but it's dynasty. I'm in. I'm still in. I think I take him over Devontae Parker as well at 74 there. I don't know. That's a whole another discussion. I don't know if you want to answer that question as well.
I think
he's right there.
I know. At least I'm probably going to say this on a couple of guys here, and I'm going to spend it on my first guy here. But Corey Coleman's the type of guy who it isn't going to take but 2 or 3 games before and him having some decent games, because there's a ton of people who liked Corey Coleman, and obviously his value staying strong before the value's right back up to the 50s, 40s, 30s. Just in a couple of games, I think the value will shoot back up. See, I knew Corey Coleman was good,
right?
And so maybe you get in there at 73, and maybe you could do a quick flip around in the beginning of the season or hold him. So I'm intrigued, like you said, by the potential. And I think I'm okay with 73. This is a decent discount for him. I think I like him more than Devontae Parker at this point. For me personally, I'm going to take Sterling Shepard and probably pass on both of these guys. But
best thing that could happen to him is that Pryor comes over. They feel a little bit crowded over there. They trade Corey Coleman to anybody else. Best thing that could happen to him. And to that measure, if we're going to say, hey, you're on the clock and you got to make a pick here, I may slide on down. And if I'm going to put my stock in a young wide receiver, I might just slide on down and grab Chris Godwin.
All right. Well, I mean, so you're basically saying that you're out at 73?
If whoever bought Corey Coleman to begin with is upset, whoever bought into him last year being like, oh, well, it's what it is, and we'll get him this year because he was hurt and then 2 straight hand injuries, that could scare you. I would be buying Corey Coleman from a current owner. But in a startup, everything's different. You're blank slate. You're coming in here creating your team. I don't mind buying in at Corey Coleman's drop in value to a current owner with a team. I can package up a couple of guys I don't really like and try to pick him up. But in my startup draft, I'm probably not taking Corey Coleman at 73.
I look at it as it's a like I said. I mean, maybe I want to take Sterling Shepard a little further up the line here and probably take somebody else here just because I feel a little more comfortable. But at the point where you're taking him at 73 or whatever that is. I feel like it's a decent swing to take at that point. You've got a couple of guys, and depending on how you built your roster, you're probably you got some safe guys and maybe a home run or 2 in there, and then this is another guy who could potentially be a little bit more of a fun kind of swing.
Couple games he shoots right back up the board. So 5-12 is pick 60, so that means 72 is the end of the 6th round. So 73 is the beginning of is 7-1. Basically, 6-12 is 72. So 7-1, the first pick in the 7th round. I mean, that's the cheapest you got in Corey Coleman in 2 years in Dynasty.
And it
absolutely,
could be a quick flip,
no doubt.
like we just mentioned. So
a couple games he jumps up.
I think I'm okay with still buying in there.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, you mentioned Chris Godwin. Let's go right to him next. He's at 81. You said you would take a chance on him. I think, I was a little shocked to see the sticker price on him. We talked about Galladay on the last podcast. He's at 79, right above him. And then kind of Godwin, who are kind of in the same vein, I feel like right now, as players who are maybe on the rise. So, again, a little shocked, but this is maybe the last time you're going to buy Godwin at a semi-reasonable price tag, question mark?
Yeah, I remember a tweet coming out a couple months back from Brian McDowell saying, hey, Chris Godwin is such and such, and I believe it was in the hundreds or late 90s, and he was like, I guarantee he's moving up 30 spots, and sure enough he did, and he was absolutely right. The thing about, like you said, we got Corey Coleman, we got Chris Godwin down here, we had Devontae Parker there. Galladay. The thing about the sticker price on Chris Godwin right now, it looks high because that's where he started from in the back, but because he was a second round rookie pick last year. But again, look at what happened with Michael Thomas. Nobody was picking Michael Thomas early in the draft picks, but he goes and plays with Drew Brees, blows up. He's a first round startup pick now. We don't really know about these young wide receivers until they get out there and start playing. But where you initially buy them, like the Corey Colemans and the Devontae Parkers, they were up there in the second round, third round of startup picks. They haven't done anything on the NFL field, so they start to dwindle it back. And then you got the guys that start at the back. They get out there and do something, and they start creeping up. But if they play with Drew Brees and catch 100 balls, they go straight to the top. So, Chris Godwin has Jay Wayne, that was his boy last year coming in, and we all liked him. I mean, how could you not like Chris Godwin after that bowl game where
he
he
went
just absolutely
super hard in the paint for
Yeah,
Chris Godwin in the
absolutely.
second round. If you listen to this show, you got him. And now look, you got a solid asset. You're welcome.
Yeah.
No,
Well, I'm just saying, the sticker price, it is a little bit, it looks steep, but again,
I
because that's
agree.
just comparing to where you remember seeing
Sure.
him at. If he would have started out a little bit higher in the 60s and 70s of an ADP of a startup, and he would have just played a little bit at the end of the year and played good and stuck around, it wouldn't seem as bad.
Well, it wasn't quite a favorable landing spot right off the rip because he was
Exactly.
buried behind a couple of guys. But now,
They just signed Deshaun.
He has now gotten on the field, and they're basically saying that they're having trouble keeping him off the field.
Yep.
And obviously, you got Humphreys over there who plays the slot, but he's probably maybe going to get out of the way here a little bit for some Godwin, and
Well, overall, the numbers don't look spectacular. 34 receptions for 525 yards, just the one touchdown. But he didn't have too many snaps. I think he played half the snaps that Mike Evans played, somewhere in the 400s. Mike Evans had almost 800 or something. I looked at it and I didn't write them down. But for all the reasons that we really liked him in the coming out of college are the same reasons. He showed you
what you
that
liked
stuff
about him
in the NFL.
right on the NFL, right on tape.
Strong upper body helps him win in contested situations.
Which was like the holy grail about him, the best
Right.
contested catch guy ever.
Yeah.
And he's just, like you said, it
worked.
proved that theory on the couple of plays that you saw him on.
I went back and watched some of the games because they started giving him more snaps later in the year. And you see the strong hands, both from a catching the ball perspective and from jockeying for leverage with a cornerback. He can fight you off, and whether that's at the line of the scrimmage or whether it's versus press coverage or whether it's at the top of a route, you saw him doing that. He's got some yak ability. I think that's the score. His touchdown, he took a screen to the house. He can go up in the air and get it. There were parts of the year that you saw him do all of this and perform on the field. Similar argument that we made for Corey Davis, where the first couple games that he played, he really showed you a whole bunch of different things that made you feel good about what you felt about him before you saw him, and then he confirmed a bunch of those feelings.
Well, like you said, you mentioned it, the total numbers for his year last year don't jump off the page, but if you pull up his game log, it's a tale of two cities over here.
Sure.
The back half of that season is we're about to use Chris Godwin. I mean, his numbers just jump off the page for
We're
that
not very
rookie.
good. Let's see what we got.
Exactly. And because, exactly. In the beginning of the season, the Bucs were a completely different offense. They tried a bunch of tight ends. Let's pound Doug Martin and Deshaun Watson, stretch them deep. That wasn't working, and trying to different things. They got the quarterback hurt. Things fell off the rails, and they were bring in the young guy. Let's see what we got. Dude played great. He's the opposite game log of a Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp comes right in there, and he's just got steady numbers all year long. But
Sure
you
he
bring in Godwin at the end of the year, it's the back half of the year, and he's looking real solid with some of these numbers.
Left a great taste in everyone's mouth week 17.
You gotta
crushed
remember-
the Saints for 711 and a touchdown. He was working that DB, Crawley, number 20. It wasn't Lattimore. Lattimore was over there with
but Crawley
Mike
had
Evans,
a good year.
And he was torching Crawley.
Most of these numbers come with Ritzy Fitzy throwing in the ball. Fitzpatrick,
Exactly. Yeah, and Winston was playing that last game.
Yeah. That's true.
But I mean, it was just so good to see. And if you just look at the overall total, it's not going to give you the right impression. If you watch some of these games where he was getting work, he looked great doing it. And I can understand why. Like, looking at the ADP, it looks a little alarming. But like you said, to lead it off, Casey, is this the last chance you have before it's too expensive?
Before it's expensive money.
Right. So, I mean, I like Chris Godwin, and I'm ready. I'll take him if I have to, wherever I got to take him.
I don't think you're going to get too many arguments from me if I had a team and it was around this area and I wanted to take a shot on a younger guy who could possibly play dividends for me, just kind of like we talked about Corey Coleman just a second ago, and you mentioned Chris Godwin, and I was kind of indifferent, but I'll, either one of those guys I'm okay with taking a shot on.
Well, everybody knows that listen to us. I will give young receivers a hard time because it's hard for them to produce for my lineup, and I'm not a big roster clogger fan. But in a dynasty format, you have to allow for some of those youngsters sometimes. And in this scenario, that you have to. I will sign off on Chris Godwin at this ADP, but you also have to understand that going into next year, they got Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, potentially still having Cameron Brate. They got Deshaun Jackson, who's asking to please get on the same page. They might have some running back that can catch the ball. You might not be plugging in Chris Godwin in your starting lineup next year.
Right away.
You might not be. But
And
you know
fair.
what kind of you are bringing in a solid asset who showed himself to be an NFL player at the end of the year, and he's got he's got college tape to back up what you are buying into. So I don't mind buying him, but just know that you're not buying a guy that you're going to plug right in versus you can buy somebody in this area that you could plug right in for production.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of what you're weighing here, and that's maybe why the sticker price immediately shocked me when I saw him there because of that kind of reason. He's still slightly unproven. You liked what you saw in the game film
Spurts.
In spurts there, kind of reconfirmed what you
Liked about him already.
liked about him.
Right.
But to your point that you just mentioned with all those guys, like Djax, they brought him in because they were one of the lowest, deep play teams in the league. Jameis was pretty inaccurate in his deep balls last year. Deshaun, through no fault of his own, couldn't get going last year. He was open plenty of times, and Jameis just missed him. So, like you said, it could be a little while before Godwin really works his way on. And, I mean, you say what you want about Humphreys, but Humphreys plays a role and is a pretty decent slot receiver.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not rushing out to grab Humphreys by any means on any team, but, like, there's just certain guys on certain teams that play a role.
Humphreys is a fantasy point spoiler because he'll take points from the guys you want to have in your lineup.
Yeah.
He's good. He's a good NFL player. He's not somebody you're trying to put in your lineup, but he's taking catches and points away from other people because he's solid. He's a solid player.
Clemson guy. Go Tigers.
But the Bucks do have some decisions to make on your former Tiger there. He's a restricted free agent at the end of at coming into this year, so they're going to place a tender on him. I can't see anybody coming in and scooping him up. You got Deshaun, they can get out of his contract of paying him like $11 million after this year and have zero, money against the cap. And then Mike Evans in 2019 is a free agent. So I mean, I don't think he's going anywhere, but if we want to play the speculation game, maybe they believe in Chris Godwin and let Mike Evans walk, cut Djax, and revamp this whole thing around Godwin. I mean,
that far.
Crazier things have happened.
Well, we talked about it last offseason, how the Tampa Bay Bucks, they would actually run the ball and try to win football games. Something happened in 2017, and they went from like an even split on running and passing to the bottom of the league in rushing attempts and the number 3 team in passing attempts.
Now, the defense was terrible, and they were behind in a lot of games.
Well, yeah, I'm just going to throw it out there because there's a lot of mouths to feed. Potentially, there's a lot of mouths to feed over there, and Jameis isn't exactly a prolific passer yet.
Yeah.
But he will throw it, and he'll sling it. And so just
gunslinger mentality.
Exactly. So they're
a little wild yet though.
600 attempts for the team, not Jameis because he was hurt a couple games, but third in the league in attempts. They might air it out a little more.
Well, I mean, could be again last chance.
I don't care about the Bucs defense for my fantasy team. I want the Bucs defense to be bad. I want to throw it all over the place.
Right.
Well,
you'd like a little more controlled chaos from Jameis. But
Yikes.
That's a good term.
if
Controlled chaos.
if I got to take a shot at Godwin at 81, I mean, I don't really have a problem doing so.
Yeah.
Just to wrap this thing up.
I'll do it. Chris Godwin.
I like you.
Let's take it to break. We'll be back with more Married to the Game podcast for your pleasure.
You threw it in the podcast, huh? Ooh, crispy.
Fresh pop. Just what we need to get back into this ADP discussion. Welcome back, everyone. If you'd like to join in, hit us up on Twitter at the FF Dynasty, at Dynasty Big Co, at IMC Myers, at Jay Wayne's World for your pleasure.
MYERS.
Yeah. The combine is hot and heavy right now. We're not here to talk about that because it doesn't really matter. We're gonna keep going with the ADP. But I just wanted to point out, like, why is everyone running their 40s wearing a chain? Like, what are you doing? You know who's not wearing a chain running the 40 right now is Michael Crabtree, because Talib took that shit. So let's get into some Michael Crabtree. He's got an ADP of 85. We just got done talking about Chris Godwin, who's at 81. These two different players going in opposite career trajectories at this point. Crabtree's approaching the wrong side of 30. There's been up and down Roto World blogs whether or not, the team wants to keep him. The team wants to get rid of him, but John Gruden wants to keep him. They're keeping him. They're getting rid of him. I don't know what's going to happen. I think they're probably going to keep him. That makes sense. He's going into the fourth year of a 5-year deal. What do you guys? Are you guys in on Michael Crabtree at this ADP, or is it time to move along like his chain?
Well, this year he finished the 30th PPR receiver. Last year he was 12th, so it's a decent disparity or disparity. But the offense was just awful this season.
Wheels fell off.
The wheels fell off this thing. You saw Crabtree have a couple of decent games to start the season and sprinkled a couple in there during the season, but just couldn't put the same kind of year together as he did in 16. So, you had Derek Carr out. You just had a different kind of system in there that wasn't working and wasn't looking good.
Oh, we mentioned it in the middle of the year that it was just awful the way they were they didn't know if they were running it or passing it. It just wasn't working.
It was not good.
Crabbe started off strong. He 6 for 80 week 1, 6 for 80 and 3 touchdowns week 2. Bummer on week 3, but then 6 for 80 and a touch, 6 for 50 and a touch, 3 for 20 and a touch.
Which is why you drafted him. Those 6 for 50, 40, and then sprinkling some touchdowns there is what you were looking for. Obviously, he finished 12th the year before, so there was a ton of good games in that season.
Yeah, I mean he started off good this year or last year, and it just the wheels fell off. The entire team was just out. They were Super Bowl bound in the preseason. It was the Raiders had made this postseason.
They were the one team that could knock the Patriots off.
Yeah, I know they were the team. They were the team coming up. They had the quarterback had gotten hurt the year before, right before the playoffs, and they just had all this momentum. They were coming back. It's supposed to be good. Got his chain snatched again. I mean,
after taping it to his chest.
The second snatching, was just
fool me once,
right?
Shame on you.
The
fool me can't get fooled again. That was a George Bush quote.
To get you, to get your chain snatched off the second time is a little bit disrespectful.
By the same guy, no less.
Right.
And prepared to not have it snatched.
And you tried to tape it to your chest, you Daryl.
And then you try to fight him with no helmet on. And dude still has his helmet on, so that wasn't going to go well.
Crabtree's got no mojo, no self-respect anymore.
Both of those two dudes are idiots.
Does any of that matter, though, for fantasy football?
No, absolutely
not at all. But I guess to get back to the question,
I guess.
At 85, I think I'm okay. Like, if I've come through the draft here, if we're talking about just ADP strictly and not trading and all that other stuff in an existing team, if I built my team a certain way and I wanted to try to get another player who I'm sure, or at least pretty sure, is going to score me points most weeks, I'm okay with taking Crabtree at this particular juncture and knowing that I'm only, maybe I'm getting another year or two, hopefully 3.
Sure. Well, obviously, Fitzgerald's still churning on strong and pumping out wide receiver 1 seasons, but Crabtree's got the big 3-0 by his name now. This time last year at 29, and 29 looks a lot better than 30. And for the last 2 seasons, nobody's been banging the drum louder for Crabtree than I have as being an extremely good value when it comes to putting somebody in your starting lineup every week. 16 and 17 15 and 16 were just ridiculous for Crabtree, and I picked him up. I traded him and put him on my team going into 15 in one league, and then going into 16, Casey and I put him on another team that we had together. But this year coming in at 85, you
start to question.
You got to start pumping the brakes because there's no way to go up from here for him, because this time next year he's going to be 31. There's no way to go up from here.
Right.
Nothing wrong with putting that solid production on your team, but just know, like Casey said, depending on how your team's put together, Crabtree, if he has a bad season this year, he's going to be in the.
It's going to plummet.
It's going to be 200 ADP.
Yeah.
If he has a good year, it might be 79, it might be 85, it might be 90. It's not really going up. So he's 30 at now, and that, just like I said, it looks a lot worse than 29. You got to really pump the brakes on this thing. But if I imagine, honestly, I don't think there's any way. This is pre-combine ADP. This is February ADP here. There's no way, honestly. It stays there. He's got to come down. Exactly, Casey, exactly. It's got to come down a little bit because some of these rookies are going to come up and be forced up, and everybody's going to have rookie fever on the clock. It's 30.
A lot of uncertainty already around Crabtree. There's going to be even more once players go places.
Exactly. Crabtree's. I guarantee you, if you have a startup 30 days from now or more, Crabtree is farther down than 85. I guarantee you, he goes farther down the list than this, and he can become a decent value again. I think there's nothing wrong with having Crabtree. And the teams that I have Crabtree, I don't feel bad about him. You're obviously not selling high. There's no selling high after the way that season ended for him, and he had a couple of really terrible games, some duds. So
you got him, you're like stuck with him.
Right, yeah, you're stuck with him right now, but in the season, if you have a bad team that's not really contending, I guarantee you if he's playing well, somebody will give you something for him. It's just right now he's got a lot of stink on him. The way he ended the season, it couldn't have gone worse for you if you a Crabtree owner.
And there's already plenty of people who just don't think Crabtree's good and didn't respect Crabtree in the first place.
Sure, but
Plenty
if the last
people.
Yeah, but you got to look at those season numbers for
sure. No, I'm not. I wasn't saying. I just think like in the perspective of most other people, there's a lot of people who just don't like Crabtree in general and probably disrespected him even in the 15-16 years.
I know. I get you.
We got him for a second. We traded a late second for him coming into this year, hoping to just put another guy on the bottom of our bench.
No, it was after 15. We used him for 16.
Okay.
Yeah, we in
it's
15.
That long ago, huh?
I know it goes fast. In 15, he goes 85 for 922 and 9 touchdowns. He had to find somewhere to put that in there. In 16, he doubles down with 89 and 8 touchdowns and 1,000 yards. So I mean, both of those two seasons were just, you'd love to have him in your lineup every single week. And a down season last year, and obviously everything I just said, he ain't getting no younger.
He's not getting any younger, and if I obviously. Well, I agree with you. I think that as this progresses, the ADP will continue to slide down. And if I think that I'm really proud of myself and the team that I drafted coming in to the year here and coming into around the, let's just say 80 to 90 ADP range, and I think that I got a good chance of bringing this thing home, very first year in a startup, I'm okay with taking Crabs. Other than that, I'm just staying away from him.
I agree with that. Even in a crappy year, he just put up 8 touchdowns, and next year, if something happens and this offense gets back on track, he could be an absolute monster deal in the middle of the draft, because he's definitely sliding down from this ADP.
After that crabby year he had. I get that. If depending on how you built your startup team up to this point, I could see you wanting to be in here just to get some solid. A guy that's probably going to bounce back if he's with the Raiders. Probably anywhere he goes, even if he isn't with the Raiders. I don't hate that idea either. So, but it's not a sexy pick. He's definitely not going to ever be any more worth than what he is right now. There's younger, more sexier picks with more potential to be had right around this area. If he were to fall further, like you guys are predicting, and I kind of agree with that sentiment, then I'd be in a little bit later, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
But here, I think I'd probably rather take a swing on a younger, higher potential dude.
No doubt.
Sure.
Take that back to Godwin, 4 picks ahead of him. Right
absolutely.
Now, you got to take Godwin and then double this ADP in your draft. I guarantee you at 150, 160, I can put you in a veteran that's going to be startable. A veteran wide receiver that's going to be startable, and you can have an asset like Chris Godwin that would grow versus Crabtree's age is going to turn him into a liability.
I could put you in a family, 4-door, 5-star safety rating, get you a Volvo at 150.
Bro, I'm crushing the Volvo used cars market right now.
No, I think that's all really good. I think I think that's a decent insight on Crabtree. I think we spent enough time
Way
on
too
Crabtree.
long talking about it.
Well, just that you take Godwin and then grab Marquise Lee in 3 rounds.
Yeah,
Sure.
take Marquise Lee right here. Fuck.
Yeah.
We'll get to Marquise Lee, but let's transition to the next guy in our list. That'll put a bow on Michael Crabtree. Let's get into some Josh Doctson right here, staring at you at 88. I think there's probably some Redskins talk to be had here, but let's get into Josh Doctson. He's a excellent downfield receiver. Hasn't done a whole lot in his first 2 years in the league. Did score 6 touchdowns last year, so that's a solid starting point here. And he's a type of athlete that can fly through the air with the greatest of ease, and it's very impressive to watch. Are you guys in on Josh Doctson here at 88?
I think I'm probably out on Doctson here at 88. I do enjoy. I think Doctson in that particular class. I think that was it 15 that he came in with
16
with Coleman
16.
and Sterling Shepard and them. I thought he was one of the better vertical threat. He's like you said, he's a great ball tracker down the field, and I think once you get inside the 20, he's a very strong piece in the red zone. I don't think he's a terrible receiver by any means. I think I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah, even with his limited snaps last year,
range here.
3/4 of the way through the season, there was a stat out there where he was like top 5 red zone targets. I mean, the Redskins know. That's why they drafted him in the first round. They know he's a red zone threat, and they were hit. I mean, there was Jordan Reed was out. Pryor was already on the IR. They were down. They didn't have anybody running around out there really, and Doctson was getting the looks. But I think it's warranted because we know he's a beast when it comes to jumping up and grabbing the ball. It's just kind of like what Casey said. Again, at 88 here, but a couple of games.
Let me argue a little here.
Well, let me throw this out before you get going because I don't know where you're going yet.
Yeah.
I put a little bit of stock in what Doctson does best, and Alex Smith comes in. He's not exactly the best long ball thrower, and I know that's I'm gonna ruffle Casey's feathers, and that's gonna get a good conversation after you go, Jay Wayne.
Well, I got something to transition into
that doesn't
stat
mean
there.
Alex Smith can throw Doctson targets in the red zone from 20-25 yards away, but he's not gonna throw that 48, 50-yard bomb on the money to him. I don't believe.
Well.
He did fine throwing the bombs to Tyreek Hill.
I was under the notion that Alex Smith's deep ball was the most lacking part of his game, but according to Pro Football Focus, he had a QB rating of a 131 on balls that travel 20 yards or more down the field. So if you're not sure, that's a strong quarterback rating. The next closest guy is Russell Wilson at 103. Yeah. So he was tops in the league, and what that equates to in numbers is there was 33 completions, which was tied for the most, over 1,300 yards, the most, and this is all on passes completed over 20 yards in the air, right? 12 touchdowns, tied for the most in the league with only 1 interception, which is tied for the least.
Ridiculous numbers.
So, I mean, I that was like my kind of reservation was, Alex Smith doesn't have a good deep ball because that's just the notion, but like he was crushing balls 20 yards or more down the field. Now, I don't know what the stats are for 40 yards down the field or whatever, but who cares? Like it's crushing it.
There's not a ton of balls going 40 yards down the field, really.
Right, exactly. Good point.
20-30 for the
Jinx. So 2 years ago, his rookie year, he missed all but 2 games. Right, had a Achilles issue, which caused him to landed on IR. Came out that he had some, I think it was like chronic reoccurring Achilles tendonitis. That was like, oh man, I don't even know if he can come back from that. And then I think he shed that, and I think that he's probably got some more explosiveness to gain back because he's still, that's a tough injury to play through and to come back from. And I think but he had explosiveness to spare, that's for sure. But there's been really no offseason chatter on this guy. And, I think...
I was a little surprised that he was this high, to be honest with you.
It is a little steep, but I mean, he's only been in the league 2 years.
Yeah, no, and
he scored 6 touchdowns last year.
Efficient in the red zone, which is the best part of his game, and has always been a part that I thought that he would really excel at. I'm a little weary of taking him at this point in the draft. I would probably look elsewhere, but I like Alex Smith. I know he gets a hard go, but I think he's going to be just fine, and he'll come into the Redskins offense, and I think he's going to transition to what they got going on just fine. I think they'll put another piece or two around him. I will say to some of that stats that you just put up, Tyreek Hill, nobody can keep up with Tyreek Hill. So
I was thinking the same thing.
It's definitely something that probably
I'm sure he helped padded
that stat a little bit.
But he was so far ahead of the next closest guy.
Sure, no,
in all those categories.
I'm saying that helped him probably get over the top of that stat there. But I thought Alex Smith played great. He was like QB 3 or 4 last season.
There's no arguing with how good he was last year.
And Doxson's not quite the athletic speedster freak that Tyreek Hill is, but he's athletically freakish in his own right.
Right,
and he can go up. He can go up in the air where very few humans can even get to. I mean, it's magic in the air.
Well, to play devil's advocate, he goes up in the air and wins the contested catch, which Alex Smith doesn't want to throw the contested ball. Tyreek Hill's got you blown up, and it's not a contested pass. You just throw it up.
Deuces.
He's already got the deuces up. You throw it out there, and if you're lucky, you can throw it far enough where he didn't outrun it already.
We saw Alex Smith let it rip a little last year because he had nothing to lose. He knew he was probably not too long in the tooth there with Kansas City and them having moved up to draft Mahomes. So he was playing his ass off to try and get a next contract. Now he's got that contract, and I don't think he's the type of dude that's going to just sit back and just rest on his laurels. I think he's going to want to prove
Alex Smith
that he's really good
been
still.
playing with a chip on his shoulder.
Right.
Everyone loves to hate him. He's been just fine. The
People do love
the
to hate
stink around Alex Smith and the Doxson thing was about the tight windows and how he wasn't a tight window thrower, and Doxson is more of a kind of a tight-winded contested catch kind of guy, like you were saying there. So,
but he doesn't have to
some
throw
people
in a tight
have already
window.
been
He can throw it
putting. I don't know
4
what the
feet over
exact
the air.
stats are on all that, but there are stats to support the notion that you're talking about. But
Josh Doxson's window is not as tight as most dudes.
I agree with you. That's just the thing I liked most about him. Like I said, when he was coming out, I thought he was one of the best vertical threats, and I love the way he wins on the deep ball and tracks it. I think he's a really good red zone weapon. I think I'm going to probably stay away from him here, though.
Well, while you were talking, I'm just looking around. We're starting with Doxson here at 88. Like, you just scroll down a little bit. This is just like a stinky zone here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is just like ugly zone. I mean, my eyes are attracted to Kyle Rudolph down at 106. I mean, this is kind of no man's land right around here. So I can't argue with you if you wanted to be taking a shot at a guy like Josh Doxson at 88. Maybe with
it
all
can only
the
go up. I feel like unless he gets another like Achilles injury or something. But
I think with he's not considering he's been in the league 2 years. He's not 23. He's 25. So you got the ageist out there that's going to hate if he doesn't do good this year. He'll be 26 and not doing great. But just to throw it out there, you got Tariq Cohen sitting here at 89. Potentially, you got the Tyreek Hill bandwagon guys going over there because Nagy's in Chicago over there saying that he can move Cohen around and make some things happen. So just maybe to find somebody that I would want to take in this range, not named Doxson, it ain't really that easy. It's not as easy as I thought it was going to be.
Alex Collins is right there at 90. That's a solid stab, depending on where you're looking at, what position you're looking at. I mean, I don't really care about the age 25 thing. I think he's a solid home run cut whose potential can he gets a couple games and him and Alex Smith look on the same page and his value just could get cut in half. I mean,
yeah. Well, I didn't want to pick out any of these. I didn't want to grab any of these rookie running backs without having the draft go through yet, knowing Landon's spot. Obviously, Kerryon Johnson's name looks good, stuff like that. But I mean,
old Kerryon Johnson,
right? That guy. But just like Casey said about the couple of the other younger receivers, if Doxson comes out there and has a couple of good games early in the season, he's going to have a huge every in Dynasty, all the young receivers have a quick, fast bump if they start playing good at the beginning of the season. It's just how it goes.
You play good and it's up the ADP.
All right. Well, we've got a little Doxson in. Let's stick with the Redskins here, and Chris Thompson here at 92, sticking in the kind of organization here.
Okay.
Obviously, Chris Thompson had a ridiculous stretch of games there. And when you look at the game log, you're like, man, the points are ridiculous. But, the kind of thing was in redraft, my personal opinion was to sell Chris Thompson because I didn't think that it was a sustainable thing. I think
you were all over him before the season. You were
right.
Like, you got to pick up Chris Thompson. And then he came in, blew up, was scoring like 3 TDs a game. And then you're like, maybe you ought to move along now.
And the way he was doing it was a lot of big plays and all that kind of stuff. And I just would have probably
definitely
moved
going
him.
to be some regression there.
And I'm probably staying away again here at 92. Not that I don't like Chris Thompson.
There's a lot to like about this dude, but let me rattle off his injury rap sheet here. In 2012, it was a torn ACL. Then he had a labrum tear requiring surgery in 13, a labrum tear that required surgery in 15, another torn labrum in 16, a fractured fibula that made him miss most of 17 here that he had surgery on too. And those are just the major injuries. That doesn't include all the strains, sprains of all the different various body parts, legs, ankles, knees, toes, and thighs, and some back contusions. So it's like,
out there.
Holy crap. Yeah.
Well, what you said, you hit the nail on the head right there. Casey, with all of the late pickups, every single time that conversation came around, Casey was telling you to get this guy, get Thompson on your team, and dude, the first 6 weeks of the season, he was on fire. Out. He was like David Johnson out there.
He's so explosive.
He was ridiculous.
Knack for the end zone.
But it was huge play after huge play. He was part of the reason why the Redskins, the other position players, couldn't get anything done, because he was scoring from 40 yards out, taking away the drive. All of a sudden, the Redskins have a couple of plays and they get a first down. Boom, score. Chris
Alex
Thompson.
Smith Kirk Cousins didn't have to throw it to a wide receiver at all. He just had Chris Thompson.
It was ridiculous.
And if I had this dude, I'd probably be trying to move on and get something decent in return, or maybe you try and hold to see if his stock goes up early in the season. That he is saying that he should be back for training camp, so that's good to hear.
Well, I mean, I think if he does get on the field and you do own him, I think you're going to see, maybe not the same, like, again, because he was big play after big play. Maybe you won't see that like on a consistent basis like you were there, where it was just ridiculousness. But all it's going to take is a little bit to flip Thompson and get some in-season value on.
Well,
him.
anytime you're scoring big chunk plays like that, the whole key word is sustainable, and it's definitely not sustainable with those types of plays unless your name's Tyreek Hill. But the other thing is, like, I knew it was injury, but I really hadn't heard those specific injuries until you rattled them off.
It's a lot.
But it was the did you say 3 labrums?
3 different torn labrums.
So I'm not liking my running back.
Shorty running back.
I'm not liking my small little running back that's got 3 shoulders that have already been blown up. So if I'm not drafting Chris Thompson here, because last year he was in the 200s, and after a couple of ridiculously good games, he comes up 120 spots. Here he is, and I can't buy him where he is now because it's not sustainable. It is lightning in a bottle, and if he does start the season next year and he's playing, maybe he is in your lineup and he's crushing it for a little while. But it's not a smart hold. It might not be a bad flip. You might be able to get him from somebody even cheap. You might be able to get him from somebody right now who's like, I can't even deal with this. I'll take a second rounder for him, and you might be able to get 2 second rounders for him the first week of the season when he scores some points. But I wouldn't want him on my team and try to think long term in Chris Chris Thompson.
Right.
Long term and Chris Thompson is just not going to go together.
I'm not interested. I think if he's healthy in the short term, I think he's somebody that if I have on my team, I'm either trying to move in the offseason when he comes back and they're saying how good he looks, or in season when he gets back on the field for a little bit and can catch some balls and get a couple handoffs.
I'm with you. Let's go ahead and take it to break. We'll be back with some more Married to the Game. All right, let's keep this thing moving. We just covered Chris Thompson. We're going to skip down the ADP and cut to his counterpart, Samaje Perine, down at 144. If you listened to us last offseason, we went pretty hard in the paint for Perine. We had a love fest. I don't know if we still, quote, love him. He kind of let us down, or as Casey put it off air, the organization kind of let us down with their usage. And if you read the Roto World blurbs now, they're all back and forth about whether he's going to take over the starting role or they got to definitely improve. And at the running back spot, it's back and forth. They definitely, Roto World has hate in their heart. They let it out as often as they can. I really would rather them not give us their opinion. But let's get into some Perine here at 144. I'll double down. I'll take Perine at 144. What do you guys think?
Well, 144 is not doubling down. 144 is like, yes, please. Why not? At 144, what do you have to lose? I mean, obviously, there's a Giovanni Bernard right there who gets no respect, and there's an old, washed-up DeMarco Murray right there. I mean, why wouldn't you take Samaje Perine, who really showed you a lot in a couple of games last year? And just before I turn this over to Casey and his analytical eyes, like, you don't say we're definitely upgrading the running back position if you're definitely upgrading the running back position. Like, it's everything about pre-draft is all about
Smoke screens.
Smoke screens, right. So if you're definitely...
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
If you're definitely upgrading the running back position, that's when you're hammering. Hey, we're looking at cornerbacks and defensive back and D ends. I mean, come on now.
Why are you going to go disrespect your man like that?
Nobody's doing that. Nobody's doing
A little
that.
disrespectful towards Perine.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think
That's what that organization does. They just disrespect their players. I don't give a shit about
Yeah,
that.
no doubt. Bad organization.
It's a terribly run organization.
Terrible.
Has been for a long time. They don't know what they got when they got it. They can't ever figure things out. They paid Kirk Cousins way too much money. They could have kept him around and paid him probably less money if they would have just paid him originally.
Right.
Like they just don't know what's going on. They always keep the wrong guys. They just can't seem to figure it out. And then as far as Perine goes, I mean, when you look at him from beginning of the season to the end of the season, I think you saw a nice growth from a player.
Absolutely.
I thought you saw a guy in the beginning of the season who wasn't running like you saw him run in college. He was pressing. Yeah, he was pressing really hard. And when, obviously when there's nothing there, I like to see my running back, especially a guy of his stature, put their head down and try to get what you can get. With that being said, I don't think he was having enough patience in the beginning of the season. And when you watch him from beginning of the season to the end of the season, I thought he started to show some patience and started to get back to kind of get comfortable. And he had some fumbling problems and confidence.
Fumbled. He dropped an easy pass, one of his only 2 drops on the year. I can remember it like it was yesterday. It was like wide open, going to convert the 3rd down, and he just blew it.
He battled.
And he put himself in the coach's doghouse by messing up a couple times, got his confidence down. And it started to snowball effect in the wrong way. But he's a trooper. He's a battler. He battled himself back to a prominent position. And in midway through the season, or week 11 and 12, he had over 20 carries in each game.
Right. Well, I mean, they didn't have a choice. Rob Kelly got injured. And
Chris Thompson got hurt.
So
they had to finally feature him.
They had to feed Perine.
And what did he do?
I think he played fairly well, especially on a team who wasn't very hopeful of doing much. And the offense in general, when you watch the team, especially later on in the season as the defense got hurt and as the offensive linemen started to dwindle down, Trent Williams was hurt all season. Morgan Moses was battling injuries all season. This line was banged up. Obviously, you don't have too many threats on the offensive side as far as weapons. Pryor got injured. Crowder battled injuries a good bit of the season. Perine battled injuries, a hand injury, and a multitude of other things.
Reed was nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, Reed's nowhere to be seen. So lots of things. And then when you watch this offense on tape, it's like it's a bunch of big, heavy sets with one wide receiver out here, and they got everybody in the middle of the field. There's one safety playing, kind of center field back there, and then everybody else is up near the line of scrimmage. Like, it just wasn't that great. When you look at the next gen stats and you look at eight plus defenders in the box, Perine's fairly high up there. Now, it doesn't clarify whether that's, and I don't have the time to go through and count whether it was 8 defenders and 8 offenders, which a lot of the times I think that was the case, is that they had a lot of bigger, heavier guys in there, so there's a lot of traffic and whatnot.
Yeah, you'll get 8 in the box if you got a big, heavy package.
Right. So, but still, I think Perine did face a little bit of an uphill battle when he was doing what he was doing. But then at the end of the season, you saw a little bit of increase of him kind of waiting for that zone kind of read action on the offensive line develop, and showed patience and hugged up to the line and burst through holes. And he's a pretty hard guy to bring down once he's running with confidence. And these people who say that Perine can't catch, like, he ends the season with 3 for 4 targets, 3 for 3, 4 for 4, 2 for 2, and 3 for 3, doesn't really play in week 17. Ends up with a decent amount of catches and
looked great doing it.
And he looked fantastic doing so.
It was like a one-handed catch in there too.
And he's like I said, I mean, it wasn't like he was just getting hit when he caught the ball. If there was somebody near him, he was catching balls in stride and running right through arm tackles. I thought you saw some good growth. Now, when you look at the averages on the yards per carry in some of those games.
Oh, well, yards per carry.
They're not fantastic, but there's also in this Dallas game, they get down early. They have a lot of turnovers. They're down trying to come back. So he has some good runs. And when you watch the game and then you go back and look at the box score, you're like, well, this doesn't make sense. I just saw him make a bunch of good runs. But then when you look at the overall end game and you look at where the runs went, it's like positive run, positive run, positive run, 8, 3, 4, 1, 8, and then it's -3, -3, -1, no gain, no gain, no gain. And it's like, some of those aren't really his fault. There's guys in the backfield. He doesn't really have anywhere to go. And then in the Charger game, again, they get down early and they're trailing the whole game. So it's But still, then when you look at the fantasy production, he comes back with those catches, and from week 11 on, he has 16 points. From week 12, he has, or in week 11, sorry, he has 19 points. In week 12, he has 16 points. Week 13, he has 9.9, which is, I'm going to count that as another double-digit game for you.
3 in a row.
So that's 3 in a row. And then he finishes with 9.2, 8.6, and 9.4. And in week 17, not a ton of usage. So, I mean,
carries.
on a struggling team, on a struggling offense, I thought he played, and a defense that was just beat up with injuries, I thought he played pretty well to end the season. And you started to see the reason why you did like Samaje Perine at the end of the season. And, you know, so at 144, I'm not that upset with snagging him and put him on my team. Obviously, if they...
No, that's the last pick in the 12th round. You could do a lot worse than grabbing Perine.
A potential starting running back, and obviously maybe they do upgrade and draft somebody later in the draft, or maybe they bring in another free agent, and we kind of see how that plays out. But I thought you saw some positive things from him. I thought he kind of can do a little bit of everything for your team. Like, he can be your first and second down guy, and then he caught balls perfectly fine.
When they threw it to him, 2 drops. That's player profiler. That's inflated drops there too.
Yeah, right.
And real quick to the point of if they bring in another running back, then his ADP is going to drop even more, and he's going to be even cheaper.
Yeah, very true.
I'm all in because I'm not going to blame them if they bring in another running back. They got friggin' Rob Kelly and Chris Thompson, who can never finish a season. So I wouldn't be mad at them if they brought in another running back. Maybe if they spent like a high pick on one, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I'd still be down on Perine because I think he's going to win this battle. I think he's going to win this job, and he's going to produce because he's got his confidence back. He's got his swagger back. He started to look like the dude you saw in college, and he'll run you over, and then he shows you some PPR floor. Like, let me get some Perine. Why do you hate? Why are you hating?
The biggest thing about that is the way that he looked decent catching those balls. It gives you a potential for, like, people say they just pigeonhole somebody and says this guy's big, he's strong, so he definitely can't catch.
Yeah,
and you know,
he didn't have a lot of college production in that standpoint, but you gotta see when he did have
give him the chance.
Given the chance, he looked pretty decent. We said that last year.
In a quick Google search here, it looks like the Redskins don't have a 3rd round pick. They got too many holes to be worried about the running back in the first 2 rounds, and there is a lot of strong, solid running back depth in the draft class here. So in the 4th and the 5th round, they definitely could grab somebody good, but in the 4th and the 5th round, I don't, unless some decent running back slide down the board there, I just don't see where you're going to get somebody who comes in automatically and bumps Perine out of the spot to get a shot. And like you said, Jay Wayne, when he had his confidence going, a fumble can hurt you, sure, but when he had his confidence going, he looked good. And
battering ram, man. He was like spinning forward, getting 5 more yards as he was getting tackled.
No doubt. And the Week 11 game, like 23 carries, 117 yards on the road against the Saints, which they had surprisingly one of the best defenses in the league this year, and a touchdown. And playing at home the very next week, you got a rookie that just carried the ball 23 times, comes back the next week, carries it 24 times, gets 100 yards, catches 3 for 30 like Casey said. And the next week, the Dallas game on the road is when they just fell apart with their turnovers, and the offensive line had 2 or 3 injuries in like 4 different plays.
Yeah.
It was like bang, like the game came to a stop for like 45 minutes because there was 2 huge men laying on the field that couldn't move within 3 plays of each other. And there's nothing there for the rock to run the rock, but he grabs 3 for 30 in the passing game, like you said. So like this dude is not just a 1 and 2 down back bruiser. Is he going to come in there and be Le'Veon Bell? Absolutely not. But it
doesn't have to come out on 3rd down
at 12-12 and the potential to drop down. I think that was perfect.
If
what you
guy
said.
Grabs
it doesn't matter who they take in the draft.
Right. If they grab a running back,
any running back,
the haters will be out.
Any running back sounds better than Perine.
They're already out. I mean,
if you have hate in your heart, let it out.
Sure.
He's a plotter. He's not any good. I told you so. Oh, I liked him, but now I'm off of him. I liked what I saw at the end of the season, and this is what fantasy football is all about, man. Everyone's down on this guy. I'm going to double down on him, and I'm going to reinvest and see what comes out. It's not going to really cost me or hurt me at all. So I'm hanging out with Perine. I believe in his ability.
Yeah. The biggest thing here is to
don't let the liberal media tell you how to think and feel.
So when the Redskins draft a running back, which they very well could do with the later round pick, don't listen to all the hate that's definitely about to come out. Just be glad that Perine's ADP is going to drop even more and be all in. Let's get some Perine.
One more thing, like on some of these negative runs that he had. It should have been way worse than it was, and he fought just to get 0 or -1 on some of these negative gains. He's a really tough guy to bring down. He's a hard-nosed runner. I like everything that P. Ryan
Ricochet
has to offer.
romance.
Sure. Oh my God, King. That's the Ricochet romance.
Well, we've done it for the other players. So looking around here at the ADP, and we do assume with a lot of confidence with the way the drafts might work out and the depth of the running back class that even further Perine hate could come out and he could fall farther than 144. And I believe that's a pretty safe bet. If I had to pick, if I was on the clock at 12:12 right now and I had to make a pick, and the ADP that I'm looking at is February ADP on DLF, I would take Austin Severian-Jenkins. But in the same realm that I think Perine's going to drop, I don't think there's any way that Austin Severian-Jenkins is on the board. There's no way he's on the board at 12:12.
He shouldn't be.
Okay? I'm just saying whoever did these mocks, and this is an average, so for sure in one of these, you can scroll right over there and look. In one of these drafts, somebody took him at 125, but then another draft, somebody let him go all the way down to 168 and 175. So just saying, this is kind of a funner. This is a better looking group of people than it was up there.
Sure.
25, 30 names above there like we were talking earlier. So.
All right. Well, so we're at the player haters ball here.
Yeah, we are.
We might as well keep with another player that everyone hates. No respect at all for this guy. Just continuous hatred. Lamar Miller at 93. And again, we talked about kind of Perine probably continuing to slide if they draft somebody. I think 93 is conservative right now for Lamar Miller. I think this number is going to continue to go down, especially as the Deontay Foreman love ramps up once he starts to get healthy.
Well, Foreman's at 98. Lamar Miller's at 93. There's no way they don't switch places.
Right.
They're definitely switching
places. And I think
places.
they're going in opposite directions. For, I can get behind Foreman. I liked Foreman coming out, and he did flash some in this offense last year. But let's get into Lamar Miller at 93 here. Even though with all that said, let's talk about him at 93.
Well, as bad as it felt last year for number 93 ADP here in Lamar Miller, he had. I saw a stat the other day. He was in the tops of the league in facing loaded boxes because
at like 47%.
Yeah, at half the time he's running against more defenders than they can block, and he also was 12 or 13th in total yards produced.
Right.
So it's bad. Like he just didn't score any touchdowns.
And to say like with the loaded boxes, it's with +1.
One more defender than they can block.
Right.
So and let's be honest here. When Deshaun Watson was in there, Lamar Miller was a different running back. Deshaun Watson didn't play very long, unfortunately, because of the knee injury. But the Houston Texans offense within a calendar year has transformed itself.
Absolutely.
They were making the playoffs for a couple years in a row on the backs of J.J. Watt and some great defense.
And an atrocious offense.
Oh, horrible offense. Pick six offense. They were throwing it to the other team more than they were throwing it to themselves. You bring in you bring in Will Fuller. You bring in Lamar Miller. Hasn't been gangbusters, but he's been a solid running back and very underappreciated. And you absolutely strike it rich. You traded up for Deshaun Watson, which I loved about the Texans just to begin with because they traded up and took the right guy, and they just turned their whole offense around basically with a quarterback. That's how it works. That's how it works. But, I mean, you got Lamar. If Deshaun Watson's on the field for the rest of the season last year, Lamar Miller is not being talked about like this. Then
maybe he is. It just seems like perpetual hate regardless of what's going on with Lamar Miller. As bad as it was, still RB16 overall. And, like, the total yardage, I thought I had it somewhere, but, like, his total yardage number was up there in the 12 or 13.
It was the total yardage number was higher than the fantasy ranking number because of the touchdowns. It wasn't there for him. But where were the touchdowns at all when Deshaun Watson wasn't playing?
Right.
Nobody was getting touchdowns.
And I don't disagree that Foreman may possibly be the future, but like you said, this offense has turned around, and I want every piece that I can get of this offense. And I just think there's a ton of disrespect for Miller. I think he'll still produce. Now there is a possibility that they say that Lamar Miller, they could cut him to save $5 million or whatever, which to me, if we want to start talking about this and all the speculation, like you got a guy who's a rookie coming off an Achilles injury.
Foreman coming back. with
And
a busted up ankle.
You're not a cap strap team.
Right.
You got a guy who's been, he hasn't been this superstar that you wanted him to be, but damn it, you haven't really helped him at all. When Deshaun was out there, he was just fine. He was great, borderline great.
Right.
I loved everything I saw with Lamar Miller when, you had a crappy offensive line.
Why would you cut Lamar Miller?
Why would you cut Lamar
Doesn't make
Miller
any
just
sense.
to save? If you want to
Zero
cut him,
sense.
maybe you're going to draft another running back or pick up another running back, but you got a rookie coming off of an Achilles injury, which can drastically hurt your explosion and all that kind of stuff. I just not sure why you would go ahead and just cut Lamar. You have a legitimate shot. J.J. Watt comes back.
Yeah.
Clowney comes back. You have decent defensive backs. You have Merciless. You get another okay offensive lineman mixed in there, and maybe a better serviceable tight end. And you have a team that's not a great division. Obviously, Jacksonville just
came out of nowhere.
But this is a playoff team.
No doubt.
Why would you? For what? For $5 million?
Well, he's got a bad yards per carry.
right.
3.7.
But if I would understand it, if you make a strong move for a highly touted back, not named,
but you just drafted one.
I know. Well, I know. Like you said, you got Foreman, who's a youngster in May, and did look good in spurts and shots, and he looked good catching a couple of balls out of the backfield and taking it down the sideline. I'm not gonna say he didn't look good, but like you said, he's coming back from a ruptured Achilles. It ain't been long since, but nobody, if you other than Terrell Suggs, you don't do that.
He sizzled. Yeah, he made
if
it look
your name ain't
easy,
Suggs and you ain't the toughest man on the field, you don't play football after you tear your Achilles. And so you have the brightest, you have the best thing. You have the best thing that ever happened to your franchise. Deshaun Watson. I mean, J.J. Watt, he's the man of the year, and he does, he's great for the franchise, don't get me wrong. But you have the quarterback, which is what matters in football. You have Deshaun Watson coming back off a busted knee. You got your potential future running back coming off of a blown out Achilles. Why not hang on to Lamar Miller and just be able to use a quality running back?
Use a guy who's familiar with what's going on. He's been around the organization.
If you get a second-round running back, maybe named Darius Geis or one of those, maybe if you bring in Nick Chubb or Sony Michel, I get it. But not name those guys.
Why would you do that? You have other problems.
Other problems.
And this dude, Lamar Miller, is basically the model of consistency. Looking at his game log, it's very solid to quite solid, like you said, when Deshaun Watson was in there. He's only missed 2 games in the last 5 years of his career playing the running back position. That's very impressive. He did leave a bit of a bad taste in owners' mouths. The last 4 games of the year weren't the greatest statistically, but he was playing through a knee injury, and the team was already out of the playoffs.
Was done.
Right, so why they risk him? And there's blurbs of how Alfred Blue outplayed him from a number standpoint. And then they literally on Christmas, there was a blurb that said, quote, Lamar Miller outplayed by Blue versus Steelers, end quote. And then goes on to say and explain that he rushed 10 times for 55 yards, which if my math's right, that's 5.5 yards per carry. That means he's good. So I don't know what this whole hate thing is about that. And then you got to go down to the game logs to see that he also added a catch for 10 yards. They didn't mention his one catch, his one target for 10 yards, which he had no drops on the season. So no drops charted with for Lamar Miller. Thought that was very impressive. He had 36 receptions, which is pretty solid. It's a very, very, that's what brings his floor up. There's not very many games aside from the end of the season when he was playing through a knee injury that he didn't get you double-digit points.
Right, and now if you can have a bit more of an efficient offense, there's not too many offenses that are running with bell cow backs. There's plenty of offenses that are splitting with 2 guys. We've seen Lamar flourish with a little bit less.
Right.
Less might be a little bit more with him, and he's been very consistent. And you give him maybe 5-6 touchdowns on the year, and all of a sudden, everyone's, Lamar Miller's saving your franchise.
He had 6. So
running
I'm in
and
with
catching.
that.
Yeah.
He's a fast dude. He's got 4.4 speed, and he can bust off big plays, but it's strange because he didn't have his longest run was 21 yards, and his longest reception was 36 yards. Those numbers.
It's hard to bust off long runs when everybody in the box is just trying to shut you down.
And when your whole offensive line is full of red players on Pro Football Focus,
just a bunch of
those
garbage.
are all bad scores.
Deshaun Watson turns the offensive line into
and when he comes in, it's was there a major upgrade on the offensive line, or is maybe just Deshaun Watson has the ability to make everyone around him play better? That's one of my most favorite features about him is that he brings everybody else's quality.
I think
play
you
up.
said it at one point. He's like your 6th offensive lineman when you put him in there.
You can't sack him on that first guy.
He's super mobile. He's not looking to run, and he can stay in the pocket and create downfield.
Jay Wayne, to say that one more time, how many red dots on Pro Football Focus
All
did they
of
have
them.
for the offensive line?
All 5.
5?
Yeah.
5 red dots.
5
Red's not
red.
good. Red's
not,
bad?
Red's below
5
average.
Five
Quite
bad
poor.
offensive linemen.
Right.
That ain't good.
Yeah.
And not a good blocking tight end
Solid
anywhere.
blocking scheme, though. They do
Yeah.
run the ball well.
So what
O'Brien is-
you're
Bill
telling me-
O'Brien is a guy who wants to run the ball. So
Right.
having 2 guys who can do it is just fine. And
Sure.
there isn't any stats that say Donta Foreman was doing that against loaded boxes. Like when Donta Foreman was getting his opportunities, everyone was like, good, Lamar's out of the game. Let's back up and defend these receivers.
There's nothing wrong with the Texans maybe drafting 3 or 4 offensive linemen.
Right.
You know, like you got to get rid of those red dots, bro. You can't be
Yeah.
having 5 of them.
And they had some injuries. Who's the guy that was holding out through most of the year?
Well,
Came back and they
shipped
traded him
over
out.
to
Oh, yeah, it was one of the best
Seattle.
left tackles in the game.
Yeah, Dwayne Brown.
Why don't you pay him?
Yeah.
Well, if I was about to
they
say
are
that,
stubborn is what
Yeah.
happened there.
If you got
Yeah.
5 red dots, that they're not quite as red. If you got one anchor left
Yeah.
tackle, and you
Right.
got Dwayne Brown, but you
Right.
know what you did? You let him go to somebody in NFC.
Yep.
What are you doing?
Not that PFF is the colors on PFF
Sure.
or the
Or
end
the
all be all,
be
but
all.
like it's just worth noting that this dude didn't have a good offensive line. That was evident to see if you watched Tom Savage play. And then
Sure.
Deshaun comes in there and he's just scrambling and keeping plays alive just amazingly. You just see everything that you saw out of him in college.
And then you get you got people on there like, oh well, old Foreman drastically outplayed Lamar Miller. Like what you saw was Watson scramble around and hit Foreman on a
Yep.
play where nobody was around him, and then he ran down the field and made somebody miss. Like I'm not taking any. I like Foreman,
And he's got
I'm not
that
trying to
speed.
hate on Foreman at all. I like Foreman. I think these guys should coexist and be a really good tandem in the backfield.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying. I don't see the hatred for Lamar Miller. Like everyone hates this guy and says he sucks so much. I just don't think it's a fact.
Yeah, look, Dante Foreman caught 3 balls, and one of them just happened to be down the sideline. Deshaun Watson made that play.
Oh,
He
yeah.
made somebody miss, and he ran for a long time down the sideline, and it looked good. No doubt
He
about
made
it.
like 2 people miss. It
And
was
Donta
crazy.
Foreman can create on his own. Like I mean, I'm again, I don't not. This isn't the purpose to like. I don't like.
Right.
I like Foreman.
We're not hating on Foreman.
Yeah.
We put him in
Well, I mean, let's keep this thing rolling. So you got Foreman at 98 down here. We said that we thought that these ADPs would swap and
they're
continue in
definitely
opposite
flip-flop.
directions.
They're definitely flip-flopping.
You know, if Lamar Miller gets cut and goes somewhere else, I mean, you know, maybe his stable's out a little bit. But so Foreman at 98. It's you guys cool with Foreman at 98? You like him coming back off the Achilles? You want, you know, everyone wants him to be the lead dog. Like if he's the lead dog, and I want a piece of this Texans offense is really what I'm angling
Just
for.
about
here.
to say that, and you really kind of just paired that up so nicely with if he's a lead dog, Texans offense with Deshaun Watson. If Deshaun Watson comes back and he's looks like he did last year, and Donta Foreman comes back and he's healthy, you want Foreman on your team. Foreman is a great gamble. At the 98 here, that's what, in the 9th round, 10th round, a late 9th. I mean, that's a good gamble. That's a solid gamble. But you're talking about a guy that just ruptured his Achilles.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta really kind of
It's
water
tough.
down your expectations early in the season. Now, if you have a startup past spring workouts or at least get into some mini camps and Foreman's out there on the field and they say he looks good and you can't tell it happened,
They're saying he's on schedule.
you better pick up Foreman.
They're saying he's on schedule, but the Achilles, like your burst,
And
is
that's
coming
part of
from
what he
there, and
relies on. That's
right.
part of the that's part of the good. That's the best part of his game is his explosion, his long speed.
So why not? You got a really back to this point. You got a really good offense and a pretty good defense. The defense has been your backbone. Your offense is evolving. Bill O'Brien did a great job of re-scheming this entire offense mid-season
Overnight.
to do what Deshaun
shame
Watson
on him for not
does.
having that done all preseason and offseason. but
Very
whatever.
true. Very
Oh,
true.
we said that last year 10
Yep.
times.
But
You trade that in the first half.
why would you
benched
not?
him in the
Why
first
would you
half.
not want a guy like Lamar Miller anchoring your team for even if it's the first 4 games? Just ease Foreman back in. If you
Exactly.
really want him to be your lead dog, why are you going to put him out there with and
Yeah.
risk anything?
Sure.
like
That's a
let
great
him come back.
Yeah,
Spend the
Foreman's
$5
got,
million and get this consistent year out of
You
Lamar
want to cut
Miller.
Lamar next year? Cut him next year.
Foreman's 235 pounds, Bo. You
Yeah.
need to give that Achilles.
I don't
just
think
a
he's
second.
quite that. Oh, Foreman, right?
Foreman.
There's
Foreman.
some stats that say Lamar Miller's that big, but
No, he definitely ain't that big.
no, he's not that big. But he is. He's bigger than I thought he was. He's listed at 218 here on.
So are you guys in it on Foreman at 98?
Yeah. But I'll tell you this: if you draft before you figure out if Lamar Miller's on the team or not, they could be splitting carries, and you don't be really excited about any of them in your starting lineup.
Well, I mean, you're drafting him at 98 again with the hopes that
He's 21 years old,
right? And he's going to be the guy.
Sure.
And people want to. People just like the new shiny object, and Lamar Miller has been, not this awesome player, so there's no chance that he's good, and I don't want him on my team.
Mm-hmm.
Lamar's still only 26. If he has a great year, I don't see why they wouldn't fill that whole thing up again. It's possible he's there for two more years. Maybe not.
And Lamar leaves, and he's going to go somewhere else and probably be just fine. Lamar's a good running back.
I'm all in on Lamar at 93. 98 for a dude coming off of Achilles tear. That's a little tough.
There's all these great rookies coming in, and everyone's like, "Oh, there's going to be rookies. There's going to be running backs everywhere." And it's like, all these rookies could suck. Every single one of them coming in here could be like, obviously Saquon, and you got a couple of guys who you're like, they're probably not going to suck, but like
probably going to be pretty awesome.
There's some of them. Nobody knows if any of these guys are going to be good. Like it happens.
Oh yeah, it happens.
I think at 98 here, I think I might have to take the guy that's at 96 over him. Let's go ahead and take a break. Let's wrap this Texans talk up, and we'll 96. Come back. We'll get into some Marlon Mack.
That's what they call a tease in the industry. Jay Wayne just went with the tease.
After the break.
Marlon Mack over Foreman.
We'll see.
That's why Roger Predactor's dead. He found Captain Winky.
Big old Mr. Kanish.
Let's get into a big old Mr. Kanish himself. Ooh, Marlon Mack.
Bit of a point of contention here.
Yeah.
Married to the game. Not because we dislike him. We actually really like the guy. We kind of pumped him up last offseason as an
pump him up.
An electrifying player that needed some polishing. He had some things to learn,
He needs to learn the way I learned from my father. The way he learned from his father.
Basically, Marlon Mack needed to learn from his dad, Frank Gore.
Yeah.
How to not
Frank the Tank.
Everything outside.
Frank the Tank don't play that.
Right. And so last offseason, we had to kind of come on the mics and settle down the hype on Marlon Mack because everybody was like, oh my gosh, he's about to be better than Frank Gore. He's going to overtake this backfield and be the best thing ever. And we were like, hold on a second.
Old Robert Turbin had something to say about that for a minute, and then he got hurt.
Yeah.
Gun
well,
show.
Frank Gore had something to be said. I mean, Frank
the
Gore
inconvenient truth.
Yeah. Which he's coming back for his 35-year-old age season. Like, well, come on, Frank. You should just ride off into the sunset, man.
Frank doesn't ride off.
No way.
Well, he wants to bring it back, but he's not going to be a Colt.
Yeah, they're going to cut ties. But there's a chance that Saquon could come in here.
Well, that would really put a huge damper if they drafted Saquon, but I couldn't really blame them if they did. I do think that there's no chance they're not adding a running back or two.
I would like to see them draft like Bradley Chubb or somebody else besides Saquon.
Right, like something to help out this offensive line, help out Andrew Luck. But I mean,
so to get back to the tease,
sure.
Before we left, you said maybe you would draft Mack over Foreman. Is that what you were alluding to?
That's kind of what I want to do almost. I mean, the Achilles really scares me. I do believe that Foreman is going to be behind Lamar Miller this year. I do like what Foreman brought to the table, but man, looking back at Mack, I had to go watch some of his tape from this past year in the NFL, and he put some really good stuff down.
Yeah,
I mean he looked like the guy he was in college.
He looked like a magician. There was some plays where
he shouldn't have gotten out of that.
Yeah, no,
and then he busted it off.
100%. He really slithered.
He looked great catching the ball.
Yeah,
like they threw him some screens. There was some through the tackles running. Scored a couple touchdowns doing that. But also looked great
called back as well.
Right. Looked good bouncing it outside too, which is his forte. And that was our issue with him, was that he needed to learn a little bit more about playing the running back position, especially coming to the NFL. But now he's got a whole year where he learned from Frank Gore.
Apparently America believes you. They're going with Mack. They're going with Mack over Foreman.
Mack averages at 96. Foreman averages at 98.
Big Co, where are you at here?
I'm taking.
You didn't think on the T's going out. You were questionable.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that you can pick out some plays where Mack looks fantastic. There's no doubt about it. We all liked him last offseason. Mack can look really good. I just feel like I would rather have Foreman on my team than Mack, and I wouldn't pick Mack over Foreman under any circumstances.
All right.
Under any circumstance.
I mean,
I like it
okay,
that-
okay.
I like
so
that you guys are both-
Why?
If Roto-World comes out and tells me that Foreman's Achilles isn't right, that's different. But he's on track, quote unquote, as
He is.
of now. So I would
Roto-World
not.
also loves Foreman.
I wouldn't take Mack over Foreman. I would not.
Why?
Why? Because I just think, because I like the guy that's super fast and he's 230 pounds versus the guy that's super fast at 210 pounds. I'm
But
a
can catch
weightist.
passes, you
I'm
just-
a weightist.
Marlon Mack, I guarantee, had more than 3 catches on less snaps than Foreman did. I know you love your PPR floor guys.
Sure, but I also like my big guys that can plug it in at the goal line too. And I like the guy that's playing with Deshaun Watson for sure. I don't even know for a fact if Andrew Luck will ever play again.
He's throwing weighted balls.
That was my line last week.
I know. Use that against you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't really argue with you too much. I just wanted to hear you justify it a little. I don't know.
Be a freaking crying shame if Andrew Luck doesn't play, but I'm just
it'd be very terrible. I'm banking on the Colts having Andrew Luck, not drafting Saquon, and Marlon Mack getting a legit shot to prove that he learned in his first year and can step into this role.
I will say that I don't think that they'll move forward with Marlon Mack being like their lead
bell cow.
cow.
Yeah.
But as long as they don't draft another bell cow, then I'm fine.
He's a complimentary type rollback. I mean, he's a 210 pounder. He's 4th round pick.
So-
Not that it matters anymore, but I mean, my boy's 230 pounds and 3rd round pick. Got them both going for me. I'll take it.
Foreman's a little fat.
I'll tell you
should
what.
maybe cut down a little bit.
Old Mike Mayock did not like what they were doing at the draft, showing those monkeys making those picks. He had a shit fit about that at the old draft last year when Marlon Mack got picked for the Colts. He was like, if they go back to the zoo and show this orangutan one more time,
He was getting really upset.
this is about the kids.
He got shitting. That was
Mike
funny.
Mayock got so salty about that orangutan making picks. I thought it was hilarious. Then them boys started breaking down the orangutan.
yeah.
Things get weird when you watch draft coverage for that. Even
day 3.
even the combine in the second, third day today. When
What the hell do
they've
we
just
talk
been
about?
Sitting there forever. Them boys just Michael Irving and Steve Smith were going back and forth,
Chopping it up.
Old Steve Smith was like, "Why does your shirt keep getting tighter every year?" He was like, "When you're done with that, give that back to my son."
Yeah.
Gave him some. He was like, you got a PhD. I got a PhD in route running. Are you saying that you just got like a minor in route running? And Irvin was like, nah, I'm big bodied and I can run the routes. He was like, I have both of them.
So back to the question. What about you, Case? Mack or Foreman here?
I like both of these guys.
What do you?
And if
I want to know what you.
I can feel it all the way down in my plums.
What's in the plums?
in the plum, I think Foreman and the offense and what's going on over there. I like that a little better.
Bingo.
But I could really go either way, man. Honestly, whichever one's on the
Suck
board,
it, reindeer games.
You gonna take a complimentary piece.
Whichever one hangs around a little
take
longer.
the lead dog.
I don't like this complimentary piece.
You gonna take the lead dog, or you gonna take the guy that
label
comes in
that
every
you're
once in a
giving
while?
him?
Whichever
He's not-
one hangs around longer for me is the one that I'm gonna probably put on my team. I like Foreman's outlook for maybe being possibly slightly more bell
Better.
cowish, but the electric.
But take this though, Big Co. I bet you Max value rises as the draft approaches and as the season approaches. And Foreman, if they keep Lamar Miller around, I know how you love this quick turnaround. I bet you Mac gives you better, quicker return on your investment than Foreman does.
If you get
Are you playing the long game here for the first time?
If you
Big Co?
get caught holding a flip when the market tanks, you're stuck. You could be in a bad spot. I'm gonna grab on.
Hey, he knows Warren Buffett.
I'm gonna grab. We text.
He writes. No, I thought it was letters, but
No, we text.
you write letter. You said he wrote you a
Carrier
letter.
pigeon.
I guarantee he writes letters still. That's probably pretty.
He
solid.
does. He does. He does text as well, though. He
Yeah.
probably has some cute girl doing the texting for him, I would assume. But speaking of texting,
You got billions of dollars, yeah.
right.
got
I'm
plenty.
taking Foreman, and I'm gonna hold on. You can let Mac kind of have a little value increase. Foreman's value, if like I said, as soon as you see him
It's
running
full
around,
steam ahead.
as soon as you see him running
Full
around,
steam ahead.
you put him in a pair of cleats, and boy, that ADP's taking
People
off.
love Foreman. They just want to be. People want to be a part of Foreman.
Yeah. They're going to will him to be good. I guess, I like Foreman. I'm not trying to argue against Foreman.
No.
I just, we've kind of been off Mac just because of all the hype, and I think I'm ready to get back in there.
It was just for his rookie season. I just wanted to temper.
He's not gonna. He wasn't gonna take Frank Gore's job. Like, let's be honest. Let's be real.
This
here.
is basically Foreman was a guy that you had to take at the end of a first or high second last year, and Mac was a guy that you. Actually, I guess by the time the draft was rolling around, you were probably taking Mac.
By the time the draft rolled around, Mac was way too expensive to take.
Yeah. So, all right.
Well, that's the end. I said it 9 or 10 earlier. I had my math off. That's the end of 96 is like 8-12 for Mac. So you're taking Mac at the end of the 8th, the beginning of the 9th round. I can't do that.
Can't do it. All right. I think that'll end it for today's show. We're gonna cut it here. Maybe come back with some more ADP breakdown for your pleasure. We got a lot more dudes on this list, but we're going to call this a wrap here at around an hour and 20 minutes so that we don't get any one-star reviews for duration issues. Hit us up on Twitter if you feel so inclined at the FF Dynasty. We have individual handles at IMC Myers, at Dynasty Big Co, at Jay Wayne's World. Please go on your platform of choice, hit subscribe. iTunes, Podbean, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio. Please and thank you. If you're on iTunes, scroll down and give us a 5-star review. Just tap the little 5 stars. You don't even have to write anything if you don't want to. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the show. You've been listening to the FF Dynasty's Married to the Game.